So, good morning, everyone. In this very lecture, we will be dealing about the chapter I Stand With You Against the Disorder, written by Jeanette Armstrong. Here, she speaks about the Occunagon tribe and what according to them is part of their identity and what are their relation with the surroundings around them, with the other living beings and other fellow beings around them. She tried to differentiate their culture and the importance of their language, which accommodate a lot of feelings in its words. Okay, being an Okanagan himself, herself, she tries to describe about the Okanagan tribe. So here she tells us that I will move directly into the text. We will first make a critical analysis of the text or a summarization of the text, and then we will come back into the major themes and ideas that the writer wants to share here. So, I Stand With You Against the Disorder, written by Jeanette Armstrong. It describes about the Okanagan tribe. The Okanagans are the Native American people in the Canadian province of British Columbia. It is said that the place is known for its wineries and fruit orchards and also for its beautiful landscape. Armstrong says that Okanagan is a very dry and hot place with two rocky mountain ranges. On the one side it is the Cascade Mountains, and on the other side it is the Selkirks. Okay, and with the Columbia being the main river that runs through their land. A river can have many tributaries or branches that flows through different parts of the land. So one such tributary of the Columbia River is the Kettle River. Kettle, Kettle River. So the Kettle River that she mentions here is the tributary of Columbia River, flowing in the southeastern British Columbia in Canada and northeastern Washington in US. Okay, so I've just said it here just for your geographical understanding of the place. So, beginning with the geographical description of the Okanagan, she moves to her identity, stating that her father's people are mountain people who were hunters, and she get her name from her great grandmother from her father's side of the family. So, her mother. Jeanette Armstrong's mother is a river Indian, a tribe from the Kettle River people who are in charge of the fisheries in their land. Though the writer is more associated with her father's side, she firmly believes that she has certain rights and duties or responsibilities towards the river through her family education and through her mother's birth. So identity is important for any individual, as we all because though we say that we don't care about it, we all do care in a way or the other. We all do care of our own identity. So for this Okanagan writer Jeanette Armstrong, her identity is very important, and she tried to explain to us that how far her identity is associated with her land and with her tribe and with their language. We have seen that identity is very important for Jeanette Armstrong. Why is it so? Because identity is connected to the expectations, as well as it tells others what her responsibilities are, what her goal is, what she must carry, what must she teach and think about, what she must project and what she must do and what she cannot do. Okay, it is very important for an Okanagan. Though she tried to tell us that though we wish to do many things out of impulse, we control ourselves from doing it quite often, because we are bothered about our identity in the society in which we are living. That means every an Okanagan does is part of his or her identity. Whatever an Okanagan does becomes part of his or her identity. So an individual's identity is very important for an Okanagan. She brings out very distinctive features of the Okanagan identity, stating that it's difficult to reproduce in English, because trying to translate one's culture in a foreign language like English would result in a thing where the very life and spirit or the very essence of that culture will be lost. ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ നമ്മൾ മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയുന്നില്ലേ, നമ്മുടെ പുഞ്ചപ്പാടം, കൊയ്ത്ത്, ഞാറ്റുവേല, തിരുവാതിര, ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഒക്കെ വാക്കുകൾ നമ്മുടെ കൾച്ചറായിട്ട് അസോസിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത് കൊണ്ടാണ് നമ്മുടെ ഭാഷയിൽ നമുക്ക് അതിനൊരു എക്സാക്റ്റ് വേർഡ്സ് ഉള്ളത്. പക്ഷേ ഇതേ സാധനം നമ്മളൊരു ഫോറിനർക്ക് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ എക്സ്പ്ലെയിൻ ചെയ്ത് കൊടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ തന്നെ നമുക്കതിനൊരു എക്സാക്റ്റ് ഈക്വൽ വേർഡ് ഇൻ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് നമുക്കതിനില്ല. പുഞ്ചപ്പാടം എന്ന് പറയാൻ പാഡി ഫീൽഡ് തന്നെയേ ഉള്ളൂ, വേറെ ഒന്നുമില്ല. ഹാർവെസ്റ്റിംഗ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ റീപ്പിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയാം കൊയ്ത്തിന്. അല്ലാതെ ആ കൊയ്ത്തിനൊക്കെ ഒരു കൾച്ചറും ഒരു സംസ്കാരമൊക്കെ ഉള്ളതൊന്നും നമുക്ക് ഒരിക്കലും വേറൊരു ഭാഷയിലേക്ക് കൺവേർട്ട് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് കൺവേർട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ സാധിക്കില്ല. ഒക്കനാഗനും അങ്ങനെയാണ്. ഒക്കനാഗൻ പറയുന്നത് വൈറ്റ്സ് എത്ര സുപ്പീരിയർ ആണെങ്കിലും അവരുടെ കൾച്ചർ ആ സുപ്പീരിയർ ലാംഗ്വേജിൽ അവർക്ക് റീപ്ലേസ് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് സാധിക്കില്ല. ദിസ് ഈസ് വാട്ട് ഷീ ഈസ് ട്രൈങ് ടു സേ. ഓക്കെ. So she tell us that though an exact word is not, since an exact word in English is not possible, the closest or an approximate description can be given as, I quote her, we are living and dreaming earth places. So we are ones who are land and dream together. We are dream, memory and imagination. അതായത് if someone asks them to explain who they are or what their identity is എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ we are Occunagon എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ it doesn't suit them. Their words in their language mean all these things. അവർ ഒരു വാക്ക് അവരുടെ ലാംഗ്വേജിൽ പറയുമ്പോൾ they define themselves as they are living and dreaming earth pieces. We are ones who are land and dream together. And again quoting Jeanette Armstrong, she also said that we are ones who are land and dream together. We are dream, memory and imagination. So she also states that dream is the closest word that approximates the Occunagon, but even dream does not mean the dream in English. Okay, it means more. And what does dream mean for the Occunagon? It is the unseen part of our existence as human beings. So the word dream for Occunagon means the unseen part of our existence as human beings, and the dream doesn't mean what the word dream mean in English for the Occunagon. So it may be the mind, the spirit or the intellect. So she says that it can't be replicated into English. She is trying to say that culture is more than any physical aspects and can't be completely comprehended by any foreign language. So it can be associated with the concrete and the abstract. So the identity of an Occunagon can be associated with the concrete and the abstract. So she tried to tell us that the Occunagon are what you see and what you cannot see, both together. To clarify this, she makes a comparison. She explains the deep sense of connection that each Occunagon keeps as part of their identity. The dream parts of them, part of their identity, and the dream part of an Occunagon form their community. Okay, some comparison is the comparison that she makes here is with the process of making thread, twine or the coiled baskets, placing a number of strands together and rubbing our hands together to bind them into a single strand. Okay. Similarly, she says that each Occunagon in the community he or she belongs to is connected or intertwined with the environment. That means an individual is inseparable from the land and community that he or she belongs to. So by using this comparison, she is making a clarity in the inseparable bond that each Occunagon has with his or her family and community. And to make this more strong, she says when this sacred bond is lost, the result is chaos and confusion. She is reinforcing the bond with everything around an Occunagon's existence. I quote her, they lose their place when this identity or connection with the environment, earth, fellow beings are forgotten. Closing the quote. So she moves on to talk about the individual capacity. That is, she tries to explain what makes an individual. So here till now we have discussed how she gives us a geographical description and then moves on to describe their identity, which is connected both to the physical aspects surrounding them as well as the unseen aspects unseen aspects within them. Okay, now she says that each individual has four main capacities operating together: the physical self, the emotional self, the thinking intellectual self, and the spiritual self. So these four selves connects individuals to the rest of the creation. So all these four aspects have equal weightage in one's life, and none of this is above another. Okay, so Jeanette Armstrong explains these four capacities. She explains the first three capacities separately, but she doesn't give a very direct explanation to the fourth capacity, because when all these three capacities mingle together, the fourth capacity do come by itself. So these four capacities operate together in order to create a balanced individual. They believe that if the thinking capacity is not joined to the heart self or the emotional self, its power can be destructive, not only to the individual but also to the larger self surrounding them. So developing each aspect among these four capacities is very crucial for an Okanagan individual. Okay, now she moves on to explain the first aspect, that is the physical self or the land dreaming capacity. Excuse me. And the physical self or the land dreaming capacity, that is how the Okanagan define the physical self. And it is the physical self or the land dreaming capacity is referring to the body. Body is considered sacred by the Okanagans, as it is the core or the main substance of all human beings. And an Okanagan word for body means, I quote them, the land dreaming capacity. Body എന്ന് പറയുന്നതിന് equivalent ആയിട്ട് Okanagans യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന വാക്കിൻ്റെ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് അർത്ഥം നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞു വരുമ്പോൾ ഇതാണ് വരിക, ദ ലാൻഡ് ഡ്രീമിങ് കപ്പാസിറ്റി. അതായത് നമ്മൾ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ, അതായത് ഒക്കനാഗൻ്റെ ലാംഗ്വേജിൽ അവർ ബോഡീനെ റെഫർ ചെയ്യുന്ന വാക്ക് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ വെറും ബോഡിയല്ല, അതിൻ്റെ അർത്ഥം ബോഡീനേക്കാൾ കൂടുതൽ, നമ്മൾ സിംപ്ലി റെഫർ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഫിസിക്കൽ ബോഡി സ്ട്രക്ചറിനേക്കാൾ കൂടുതലാണ്, വലുതാണ്. അപ്പോൾ അത് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലേക്ക് ട്രാൻസ്ലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ അപ്രോക്സിമേറ്റ്ലി ഇങ്ങനെ വരും. That is what she is trying to say. So the Okanagan word for body means, I quote her, the land dreaming capacity. So it is the body that permits the rest of the body to be. So the body, which consists of the flesh, blood and bones, is the earth itself. So as it is earth itself, it is part of all cycles of the earth, including the vast forces that we only glimpse. So all the all the elements in nature are represent in us in different So she tried to tell us that when a body fails to continue as an individual life form, it dissipates back to the larger self, which is the earth itself. That means when we die, we all go back into the earth. So Okanagans consider the body as a sacred and the very core of our being, very core or the very essence of our being. Now the second self is the emotional self. So the emotional self in Okanagan language can be translated as heart, which is heart, which is the capacity to form bonds or form connections or links. For example, now let us look into now let's see, like, what features does an Okanagan has to form bonds with. Okay, they have to form bonds with people, their land, and all things that surround them and that they are part of. All things that surround them and all things that they are part of. So the capacity to link or connect is what is meant by the emotional self. So heart is the closest word to the emotional self. The word in English which is very close to the word the Okanagans refer to the emotional self is heart. Okay, now the third capacity is the thinking, the intellectual capacity. Okanagan, a word for thinking, uh, is logic. Think for this thinking, logic, and memory is uh, difficult to translate into English. And here, the writer Jeanette Armstrong is reinforcing the idea that the very language is a representation of the culture. Okay, so the writer brings out how strongly bound is the language and the culture. Here, hence, she highlights the distinctive features of the native Okanagan lives, uh, and uh, and she believes uh, it that it need to be preserved. Okay, so the thinking intellectual self is the word, the Okanagan word, which when translated into English. Okay, that the Okanagan word for the thinking self, which when translated into English means this. I quote: "The spark that ignites and." Okay, the word, the Okanagan word for thinking intellectual self, when translated into English, means the spark that that ignites, the spark that ignites, and that is the closest word that she gives to the thing, that the writer Armstrong gives to the thinking intellectual capacity. So it is this self that ignites the memory and other capacities of the individual. Okay, so that is every action by an Okanagan is directed by the spark of memory, by logic, which in turn is ignited by the intellectual self. So every action is ignited by the thinking intellectual self through logic, memory, and analytical thinking. So all these together form the thinking intellectual self. Then, talking about the Okanagan educational practices, she says that a traditional Okanagan education lays more thrust on discipline. Education, according to her, helps one to engage beyond automatic responses. Okay, uh, automatic response capacity for it, she is referring to the instinctive behavior. So she tells us that education in a way try to help us discipline ourselves by helping us to control ourselves, control our own instinct, and learn to behave in a controlled manner. So to achieve this, she tells us that one must be disciplined to work uh, jointly with other selves. Okanagans believe in balancing of the self by joining the thinking capacity to the heart. Okay, that means failing in this, failing to connect the intellect with the heart would be destructive to the individual self and to the larger self around them. She says that education, like a fire, is if it is not controlled, it can be it can be destructive. So like a fire which can be at the same time, which can at the same time both destroy as well as preserve, human capacities are also capable of building creatively, and also it is capable in destructing certain things. Now uh, uh, now the importance of family, community, and relationship uh, to the Okanagans. Okay, and now we will discuss about this, how important is family, community, and other relationships for the Okanagans. The most serious teaching that uh, the most serious teaching is that in every choice an Okanagan makes, the community comes first, then the family, and only at last the individual. They believe that all individual actions affect the family and the community, and without the bond to family and community, an individual is considered as crippled, incapable, and lifeless. These are very powerful words. So without any commitment to the family and so community, an individual is considered as crippled, uh, incapable, and lifeless. These are very powerful words, and the individual believes that he is isolated and not connected to the family or community, then he becomes crippled, incapable means deprived of any strength or power. The power of an individual is the sense of belonging. That's what the writer tried to convey us. So the power of an individual is the sense of belonging. When that is gone, individual become lifeless. So the capacity to bond is considered critical or crucial for the individual well-being. The Okanagan word for relationship to others is our one skin. Okay, that is a word. Okanagan word when for relationship, when translated into English, means our one skin. That means they also believe uh, not to have a family or community is to be scattered or falling apart, or leading a nomadic life. When she talks about the relationship, she says that the Okanagans share beyond a geographical or physical space they occupy. Okay, that means the Okanagans are not just connected by the material bones, but they are also connected very spiritually. So she doesn't give an explanation for the spiritual capacity here, but she explains the other three capacities: the physical, emotional, and the thinking intellectual self. She tells us that when these three functions together, then it will lead into the proper balancing of the last capacity too. Okay, so when she talks about the relationship, she says that Okanagans share beyond the geographical or the physical space that they occupy. They all share a physical tie that is uniquely human, and the integral part of an Okanagan's existence is the kind of bond that he established with the fellow beings and the surroundings. And when this is gone, he loses the human quality that he has. Okay, this is what she is meant by the physical tie. She uses a phrase physical tie. Okay, so besides like the spokes of a wheel, Okanagans uh, respect their bond with their forefathers and ancestors, and also the bond that they should have with the generations to come. Okay, so every individual, say that every individual in the Okanagan community has the duty of respecting individuals who lived before them, and also the individuals who are yet to come after them, uh, as all of them, because all of them share the same flesh. And now moving on to the concluding part of the article. This article concludes with a powerful assertion that without community and family, we are truly not human. Okay, our being cannot be considered as that of a human. Okay, so the element of humanity is totally balanced upon the connections an Okanagan has with his family, community, earth, environment, surrounding, and everything that he is connected with. That is the things which can be seen as well as unseen. This is the a very detailed explanation of the text that I Stand With You Against the Disorder by Jeanette Armstrong. Now moving into the brief biography of the author. Now I hope you have have clarity regarding the concepts described in the text. Now we will move on to the biography of the author and understand what her major themes and literary works are. So Jeanette Armstrong was born in 1948 and on the Occunagon Reserve in British Columbia. She is an indigenous civil rights activist, a sculptor, and an educationist. She is the first Native woman novelist from Canada. Okay, so she is also referred to as an educator and protector of the indigenous people, and she strived to alter the prejudices and the wrong notions associated with the Aboriginal people. Okay. So the main objective of her works is to educate young people about the native culture and history, and she is proud of her heritage. Writing for her is a healing process, and articulates there is nothing disgraceful about her brown skin or native philosophy. So Western philosophers' educational objectives is condemned by her as it alienate or isolate the Indians from their indigenous selves. and thereby accelerating the suicide rates among them. So she firmly believes a connection can be established between the Aboriginals and the Europeans. To her, individual creativity involves larger community obligations. Okay, that means an individual has much more responsibilities towards the community, and is greatly satisfied that her research contributes directly to the empowerment of the Okanagan community and other indigenous communities, and provide them with a positive outlook. Her objective is to revitalize the indigenous methods of knowledge documentation and storytelling, which is deliberately substituted by the Western conventions, causing a cultural blindness. That means ഇവിടെ അവരെന്താ ശ്രമിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അവരുടെ ഇൻഡിജിനസ് കൾച്ചറിനെ പ്രൊമോട്ട് ചെയ്യാനാണ് അവർ ശ്രമിക്കുന്നത്. അതായത് ഈ വെസ്റ്റേൺ കൾച്ചറിൻ്റെ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ രീതികൾ അവരുടെ തനതായ വിവരസംഭരണത്തെയും അതേപോലെ തന്നെ അവരുടെ വായയിലൂടെ പറഞ്ഞു പോകുന്ന കഥകളൊക്കെ അതൊന്നും ഒരിക്കലും തലമുറകളോളം പറഞ്ഞാണ് പാസ് ഓൺ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അവരുടെ നാടൻ രീതികളും ഒക്കെ അതൊന്നും എവിടെയും എഴുതി വെച്ചിട്ടില്ല. അങ്ങനെ എഴുതി വയ്ക്കാത്ത സകല വസ്തുക്കളെയും വസ്തുതകളെയും തച്ചടച്ചു പോകുന്ന വെസ്റ്റേൺ സമ്പ്രദായത്തിനെതിരെ, വെസ്റ്റേൺ ഫിലോസഫിക്കെതിരെ അവർ ആഞ്ഞടിക്കുകയാണ് ജെനറ്റ് ആംസ്ട്രോങ്. സോ her literary career began with a poem on John F. Kennedy, and she has written 2 novels. One is Slash, which came out in 1985, and it is the first and the most famous novel written by her, and the first novel, and it is also the first novel by the first native woman. So All My Relations, an anthology of contemporary Canadian native fiction, is a collection of her short stories, and Breath Tracks is an anthology of her poems, which was published in 1991, and also she has 2 children's books. Now, I Stand With You Against the Disorder is an article published in yesmagazine.org by Armstrong on November 8, 2005, and which is adapted from Paradigm Was Indigenous People's Resistance to Economic Globalization, edited by Jerry Mander and Victoria Towley Corpus. Now, this article puts forth the destructive effects of a global economy, and the similar indigenous tribes are the tribes like the Occunagan are compelled to become cheap labor force and face threat of dispossession, or being forced to drive away from their land, or they are forcibly driven away from their land. Dispossession, becoming victims of privatization of the land and land as well as their thoughts, and the thoughtless exploitation of the resources is also pointed out by the writer here. The westernization of the undeveloped cultures is only according to Jeanette Armstrong, it is only a cunning pretext to generate new markets. That means exploiting the undeveloped cultures, claiming it to be uncivilized, is another way to generate new market for the multinational companies or for the authorities. Now, Okanagans promote 2 things in their life. One, it is bioregionally self-sufficient economies, and second one, it is the knowledge that the total community must be engaged in order to attain sustainability. The objective of the article is her declaration of solidarity against the violence of cultural imperialism, and she aspires to alter the prevalent paradigms of development programs by joining hands with the Okanagans. What is important here is that the concept of cultural imperialism. What do you mean by cultural imperialism? The cultural imperialism is the practice of imposing of a culture of a politically or economically influential nation over a less powerful society. For example, the superiority of whites over the other tribes in America is an imposed one. So the feeling of being superior with a certain the feeling of being superior which certain cultures inculcate in themselves is being referred to as cultural imperialism. So the writer is fastening against the materialistic effects of a global economy. This materialistically oriented global economy tends to generalize. That means they in the process of generalizing, our sense or awareness of diverse subcultures is obscured or forgotten. That means in this process of global economy, we fail to see the difference that surround us, and we fail to respect it. So we want to homogenize everything so that it is easy to rule, easy to make easy to make laws and norms, and it is easy to rule. So the whole article is an attempt to revitalize the Okanagan culture. Hope this video lecture was useful for you in understanding this particular article. Thank you, and see you in the very next video.